Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of BC Buckets. I'm Matthew Brune, and joining me once again is Colin Mitchell. Colin, today we have one of my favorite episodes of this entire year. I promise you that right now. Nobody's
Okay.
more excited than this than I am. We have Carter Bryant versus Cedric Coward. Battle of two wings, two players that are potentially, to be taken in the lottery, and honestly, two players that I might have in my top 10. At the very least, I have them in my top 12. I love these guys. What do you say?
I completely agree with you. I
Yeah.
was honestly kind of surprised looking at like the consensus and being like, oh, these guys aren't like higher.
Yeah.
Overall, I know Carter Bryant's usually a higher on boards than Coward, but I was watching these guys and I was like, oh yeah, this is good stuff.
This is what we're here for. Both about 6'6", 6'7", long arms. I mean, Cedric Coward 7'2" wingspan.
Yeah.
Carter Bryant almost a 7-foot wingspan. Both defensive playmakers. Both high level shooters. Both fit the archetype of what the NBA kind of wants right now in terms of those like off ball players. I think there's interesting conversation to be had about their ceiling and what they can do on ball. But just to start with the strengths, let's start with Carter Bryant here as a freshman. And there's a difference in age here, a couple years. Cedric Coward is 21. Carter Bryant's 19. So, but like I said, we start with Carter Bryant. The shooting and the shooting potential, I think both of them are high right now. The athleticism is there. You see it on defense. You see it with the dunks. You see it with the blocks. And I think you even see it with rebounding. I think the overall athleticism and his length as a rebounder is very important as well. He didn't play a ton, came off the bench at Arizona this past year, an Arizona team that was really old and had a good amount of talent on it. But he was very important to them, played 19 minutes per game. Only like the numbers for Carter Bryant, and this is the challenge with both of them here, is for Bryant is the numbers won't stand out for you. And then for Coward, it's he only played 6 games this past year with injury.
Yeah.
And before that, he was playing at a mid-major. And so and then D3 before that. So figuring out, gauging what is real for these two is kind of the hard part. I'll say that. But that's the strengths for Carter Bryant. If you want to start with what you think of Bryant.
Yeah. I mean, first off, defensively, he's not going to be he's not like a defensive stopper like probably VJ Edgecombe was the best defender, one of the best defenders in the draft in terms of on ball or wing.
I think he's right there. I mean, I'd say he's like in that top tier.
I think he's in a top tier, but I think he's much better at being a defensive playmaker as opposed to being a defender, like a lockdown type guy. And you see that a lot with his blocks and steals. I think he has the potential to be a help side rim protector and just makes a lot of off-ball plays that you're like, oh, wow. And obviously Arizona needed that. He's coming off the bench. He's going to be that type of guy to kind of, give a spark. I think when you look at his defensive problems, like I was talking about a second ago, it's where you get into fouls, but we can talk about that later, unlike an Edgecombe. But and then you mentioned athleticism earlier. 40-inch vert, basically 39.5-inch, 71% at the rim, can attack closeouts with explosiveness, great verticality. I mean, outside of just the shooting, and I think both these guys have upside, I think for Carter Bryant, that's where you look at him and you go, oh, yeah, defensively and the athleticism that you're going to get from him and being so young as well. Those are my main skills that I think right away can translate over. And so 71% of the rim. I wasn't sure if I mentioned that yet either.
Yeah, I don't think you did. But yeah, for Coward, it's interesting because he's 2 years older, so you're like he is more refined in a couple areas than Bryant. But again, you wonder in Bryant in 2 years, where he'll be. The 3-point shooting for Coward is even better than Bryant's right now. I think by a decent margin. This is a guy who can shoot on the catch, can shoot on the move, even showed some ability to shoot off the dribble, 40% from 3 in these 6 games that he played. And even before that, he was shooting a very high percentage at his previous stops as well. So the free throw percentage checks out 84%, 56% from the field. So I start with the shooting. And then also beyond the shooting and this is where Bryant has to improve, and this is this is the start of where I have Coward just a little bit higher than Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
Like we saw some real mid-range, like creation ability from Coward, and like using his bumps, using his body, and elevating, and the shot looks really pure. It is. I don't have Kawhi Leonard as a comp by any means, but like I think the jumper kind of looks like it. Like it kind of is
Yeah,
a kind of higher
the
release
elevation of the
type
shot.
one where
Yeah.
he elevates over guys and can shoot over contest really well. So there were questions about him moving up from Eastern Washington to Washington State, and in 6 games, I mean, he was tremendous. And I understand that he didn't play great in that game against Iowa, but against Bradley, he was great. In a lot of the games early on, I thought he was perhaps the best player on the court. So, yeah, that's kind of to take it another level beyond the shooting. Like there is self-creation signs there as well, and he looks really comfortable with the ball in his hands. Like even if he's not like the craziest off the dribble player, I think the off the dribble game has potential, like real potential for him.
Yeah, I agree. And you mentioned the stats from these 6 games back to Eastern Washington. I was originally going to combine them and kind of look at it that way, but then you look at his stats and they were almost identical.
Yeah.
You mentioned his 3-point shooting. It was like 38.5% or something in Eastern Washington, and he shot 40% in those 6 games. His true shooting percentage, I think, was like 67% or 68%, and it's 70%. So in those 6 games. So when you look at it that way, there wasn't really a whole lot of difference. Obviously, the competition is the problem, which is where you kind of look at the games he did play. He played against Eastern Washington, his old school, Portland State, Northern Colorado. So it is hard for me to look at some of that and go like, yeah, this is really, really good. But he was committed to Duke and then wanted to go to the draft.
Duke was ready to bring him over.
So that kind of tells you like, oh yeah, like people know he's going to be good. So you already talked about his offense. I'm going to talk about his defense. He has like a 6-inch, I think, positive wingspan. I don't know his exact. I think it's
7'2" wingspan.
7'2" wingspan. Yeah.
So yeah, something like that. It
And
might be an 8-inch plus 8.
I can't math on that, but
that is outrageous.
That'd be crazy. I wrote down +6, but I think you're right. It's +8. So again, can be a help side rim protector. But I think off ball, what he does better than Bryant is he's just more cerebral, and that's going to come with the experience of being 21 years old. There was a lot of times where I don't want to bring up Kawhi Leonard again, where you'd see the highlight, and it's like the ball's getting past the baseline, like he got beaten at a back cut, and boom, he's there, or just putting his hands in passing lanes. I struggle to think of a player over the last few years that we've done this where you have a guy that's been as active in passing lanes as he has. There's just so many highlights where he makes those defensive plays. How many steals did he average? I guess only 1 this year, but a lot of those are Eastern Washington highlights as well. So defensively, that's where I think he is a little bit better than Carter Bryant. You already mentioned the offensive side of the ball. Do you want to talk about, because I have Coward higher as well on my board than Bryant. So where do you want to kind of
I'll say one more difference between the two, and it can kind of segue into Bryant a little bit more.
Okay.
Well, no, here, one thing that I think Bryant has over Coward, before we continue, Bryant is a more explosive athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what gives him, and this is why I have them very, very, very close on my board here, is because A, the 2-year difference, but B, Bryant's athleticism is going to allow him to do a lot on the court. Like Coward, I mean, I have no doubts about the shot or like anything like that, but he's going to have to be able to shoot the ball and score the ball at a high level. I mean, he can defend and pass as well, which we didn't mention the passing for Coward.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think he can really, really like see the court, see the game really well. But a lot of like Coward is more skilled right now. Bryant has, like you mentioned, the defense, but then the athleticism to be potentially like a lob threat at times, like to attack the basket and go dunk on somebody, to really be a guy who can get up. And Coward, I think in 6 games only had 1 dunk. So it's kind of just a difference. They're similar in a lot of ways, but they're also different in that way that Bryant, it relies on that explosiveness. Coward is more, I guess, cerebral, or I guess he's just in the right place.
Using his length is what I'd say. Is he uses that more than really being physical or trying to get contact.
So for Bryant, I have for question marks kind of just 22 shots at the rim in the half court all year. On drives, he really looks kind of off balance at times. Off the dribble, there's a lot of work to do, even though I think there were some flashes. Like I think there's work to do. And like we said, the shooting is good right now. but it's not like I know it's not like I know he's going to be an elite shooter at the NBA level right now. Like there's
Right.
still work to do, and if he was already refined in all these areas, he would have played more than 19 minutes a game at Arizona. So some of this, like it is more projection for Carter than it is Coward. But those are some of my question marks I have with Carter Bryant.
Yeah, for me, it's going to be basically what he can do off ball offensively and how much he's going to end up being able to do himself. Because 76% of his rim attempts were assisted.
Yeah.
Almost all of his threes were assisted. So when you look at, you need to make sure that he has that shooting consistency. Because he shot 37% on basically a spot up basis, but he's not going to be running around like Conka Nipple or coming off screens like those guys. He's going to be spot up in the corner, so you need to make sure you're knocked down on that. And I obviously buy the shot because I'm so high on Bryant, but it's just something to keep an eye out for. Also, fouling, I mentioned that earlier. Averaging 4.8 fouls in 16 minutes is kind of crazy. So I'm sure that part of that has to do with just kind of being out there, but it reminds me of like Tari Eason when he had like 4.5 or something. So those are my main two.
Per 36 minutes.
Was it per 36 minutes? I might have
Yeah.
written that. Yep. Yeah, per 40 minutes. Yep. Yeah,
Or
you're
per
right.
40 minutes? Yeah, sorry, one
Yeah,
of the two.
that
Because
was my
he
bad.
averages 2.3 fouls and he only plays 19 minutes a game. So you double that, 4.6 points.
Sorry. So yes, thank you for correcting me on that. So yeah, just the foul stuff. And that's just a learning thing. So
yeah, this is
I'm really high on him overall. Playmaking wise, because you mentioned playmaking for Coward, I'm not as high as that on him for him. I actually think that's a little bit more of a question mark than just like kind of like a thing that I think can.
Yeah, I think it
One, because his
depends on his
handles.
role.
Yeah, but I mean his
Like if
handles
he's
a
a
little loose, and he's
tertiary
not.
guy, if he's playing alongside, I don't know, like if he's playing next to Luca and he just has to catch the ball and turn and make the right decision and stuff like that. I mean, he averaged 3.5 assists per game. In 6 games, small sample size, I know,
Yeah.
but like again, 3.7 assists to 2.2 turnovers, and I have written down connective player, doesn't force it, smart passer. So yeah, he's not like a wow guy.
No, I agree that he's a smart passer. It's just I feel like the way he played though was mostly out of the post in terms of
Yeah, let's talk about that
so
real quick. He played kind of like a. I texted Travian. I was like, he kind of plays like a 4, like at
yeah.
Eastern Washington. It was kind of weird to watch. I think their 5-man hung around the 3-point line so much. Like I was just watching it. It was like, damn, this big white dude's just chucking threes.
Yeah.
And then there's Cedric Coward like in the post, like at times, like sitting there. I'm like, okay, is this what we're doing here? So yes, I did
Yeah.
see that as well. I thought that was weird.
Yeah, so that's where I don't know like how much can he do with the ball in his hands. Obviously his handle's a little loose, and that's majority how he turned the ball over. Because I do agree he
Yeah,
is cerebral and he's a good connected playmaker, but I'm not sure it's going to be anything crazy where he's setting guys up in a way that's like a guard.
yeah.
So I'm still like I have Coward a little bit higher, but it's not by a lot. Maybe like next to each other, Coward then Bryant. Do you still have Coward above him?
I have
Above Bryant, right?
Coward 1 point above Bryant in
So let's
my.
talk about that. Why do you have a 20? Because you hate, and as you know, you hate people who are above the age of 21 in the
I think
draft.
22 is my cutoff, and he's not going to be 22. But Coward, now, like, if Coward was 19, like if Coward was Bryant's age, we'd be talking about him as the number 3 pick in this draft or number 2 pick in the draft, something like that. And vice versa, if Bryant was 22 years old, we wouldn't be talking about him in this draft. If this was the player he was at 2021. But I think Coward has a maturity to his game that I really, and it kind of reminds me of Tristan da Silva from last year, who we were both kind of higher on, not like super high, but like teens, somewhere like that. Except I think Coward, and I know da Silva shot the heck out the ball as well, but I think Coward has a very clear role, and I think off the dribble, like he just looks comfortable. I don't know how to describe it. Like he uses his body really, really well to create some separation at times. And so maybe this is just another Da Silva situation. Da Silva, I think, is going to be a fine player still, but I think Coward has a little bit more to his game than a guy like Da Silva last year. And Da Silva, I'm trying to find it right now. I think I had him 18th in my class last year, 21st last year. So I even was a little bit lower on him than consensus, but I think Coward has a little bit more to his game off the dribble, and I think that's where the refining ability comes in. Is that I think he is kind of a finished product right now, but also because he's been hurt, nobody really knows like what to expect. I'm honestly expecting the best from Coward this coming
Yeah.
year. I think if he would have gone to Duke, or if he just would have played this past season at Washington State, I think these numbers are pretty on par with what he would have averaged, and I don't think there would be a question at all of him being.
Well, yeah, if you're having a guy that's averaging 70% true shooting percentage, 40% from 3,
18
yeah,
or 18 points, 7 boards, 40% from the field, 4 assists. Like, this is not even a question at that point. If he had gone to Duke this year, and let's say he waited a year, and he would have been one of the best players on Duke, and they would have been making a Final Four run, something like that. So, yeah, I just buy Coward 100% in terms of his tools, and then also I think he's just really refined in his game. But it's a fair question to ask because he is a little older. Comp?
For Bryant, my comps are Trevor Ariza. That's always like the 3&D like
Okay,
archetype
so Trevor
player.
Ariza.
You did. I didn't finish though.
Sorry. No.
Trevor Ariza could pass the ball a little bit.
Down.
Trevor Ariza could pass the ball a little bit.
I haven't written down for Coward.
Bryant. Really?
And so this is what I was trying to decide because these are similar archetypes.
But the better comp, I wrote this one after, was Tari Eason.
I thought about that too.
Because I think that he's more of because Tari Eason had questions about his shot. Obviously, Bryant doesn't have the same types of questions about his shot as Eason did. But defensively and just their role on their current teams, I feel like it was pretty similar. It's not like they're the guys who were the best players on their teams, but they clearly fill the role. And Tari Eason's doing fine in the NBA. So that's what I have. I also have OG Anunoby written down as kind of like almost like a peak for Carter Bryant.
Yeah.
So those are my 3: Trevor Ariza, OG Anunoby, and Tari Eason for Carter Bryant.
So in terms of role, so I have, like I said, I have a reason for Coward. I think only because, like you said, he's a little bit more polished, I guess, Ariza, and that's where I see the Coward to Ariza comp there. I also wrote down Nick Batum for Cedric Coward. I think that's a very realistic one, not the best athlete. So I might stick with Nick Batum for Cedric Coward as mine. For Carter Bryant, and it's hard because he's a better athlete than these two, but I think just in terms of his role, in terms of a 3&D guy, at this moment, maybe he blossoms again past these guys. But I see Dorian Finney-Smith, DeAndre Hunter.
Dorian Finney-Smith.
Now, again, he's a better athlete than both of those, but you don't really see it, right? Like, I mean, you see it, but you don't. He doesn't utilize it in terms of off the dribble ability and stuff like that. Like, I think if he turns out as Finney-Smith or DeAndre Hunter, also that is a huge win for whoever drafts him.
Yeah, that is a huge win.
Like, those are starters on playoff teams every single year, Finney-Smith and Hunter. So, I think in terms of role, that's where I'm at with Carter Bryant. And Coward, like I said, I'll go Nick Batum just because I think he's really refined and not the best athlete, but I think there's enough to work with here.
For me, I have for Cedric Coward, I have Mikal Bridges.
I thought about that one too.
He just reminded me, especially when he'd pull up from mid range, it just kind of reminded me of that. And then not being the guy that really attacks the rim physically, that's kind of why I went there. Obviously, Bridges is a better defender, I think, on ball than Coward, but Coward, I think I see a lot of that, and especially because they're so long and lengthy. So
yeah, I thought about that too. Also, because 7'2" wingspan. I don't remember what Mikal Bridges' wingspan is. Let's look it up.
Probably it feels close to that.
It feels 7'1" wingspan.
Yeah, so there you go. Yeah,
and OG Anunoby was 7'2" wingspan. So yeah, we're close on all them. But yeah, there you go. 2 awesome wing prospects. Like I said, I'll probably have them either in my top 10 or top 11, top 12, something like that. So love these guys. Interested to see where they go. Let us know what you think down below. Leave us a like, comment, share, subscribe if you have not already. Check out the other videos on our channel. We'll talk to y'all later.